Great. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. I just wanted to kind of check in and give an update on some of the things we've been up to the last few weeks here in City Hall. First, really, focusing on the pillars that we've rolled out. A thriving City Hall is the first of those pillars, right? A real focus on government operations, how City Hall functions, our focus on creating a positive customer service experience. And so much of our time over the last few months has been about building the team in City Hall. We brought on a lot of really incredible talent. Obviously, Odie Donald at the top of that list, our new Chief Administrative Officer. But we've also really wanted to focus on specific functions and departments. And so the Finance Department is one of those, where we have brought in a new Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Tanikia Jackson, a Deputy Chief Administrative Officer over Finance and Administration, and also a new Finance Director, Letitia Shelton, who comes to us from Virginia Beach, where she was the CFO. And so I have asked the CAO to do a complete review of our Finance Department, which they are underway a few weeks into, starting with the phase one, which is really the internal review of looking at staff, looking at processes. Phase two, which is upcoming, will be bringing in external experts and advisors, and this won't be a multi-year drawn-out process. It'll be take place over the course of a few weeks, but I expect that by the end of October, the CAO will deliver a real concrete plan of action about what we need to do to improve the service delivery of our Finance Department. Obviously in the first few months of my time here, there were missteps around, timeliness of bills, the tax rebates. And so these are some of the core issues that we're really looking at and making sure that we don't repeat. Additionally, we have added a new Director of Economic Development, Angie Rogers, coming to us from Prince George's County, Maryland, and prior to that, Washington, D.C., and a new Intergovernmental Affairs Director in Ruthie Morrison, who has a long history here in Richmond, deep relationships with both our state delegation and our city council members, and will bring some added expertise to our intergovernmental affairs function. We've done a lot to really focus on communications and the customer service experience here in City Hall. And so hopefully you all have signed up for our Hey Richmond newsletters. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback about that going out to residents of our community, just to know that there is a steady opportunity for people to know what their city government is up to. We've really tried to invest more in our social media presence, and we try at least on a weekly basis, if not more than that, to provide social media updates or recordings of me just talking about things that we're prioritizing in the city. We have redesigned this first floor. You can see the color scheme around you that really helps with wayfinding, and then a concierge that we've added and opened up a new entrance on Marshall Street to City Hall. So more to come there. We really want to continue focusing on the customer experience as folks walk into City Hall, particularly as it relates to things like our permitting process, where in the coming weeks we hope to open a one-stop so that all of the departments that weigh in on the permitting process can be co-located in one place. We've also done a lot of listening, learning, and adapting, right? The first few months were committed to going through the budget process, and we heard from our partners on City Council that there were a lot of challenges to that. There were things that we would like to do and see better. And so Vice President Jordan, Councilmember Robertson, our Chief of Staff, Lawson Wijay-Saria, our new CAO, and our Budget Director all came together to form a budget task force that really looked at the process that we went through and really said, okay, for this next budget year, which we're getting into the development process for now, what do we want to do differently? And so there were sort of three main themes. We wanted to look at our existing process and then revise so that there was more time in the process, more opportunity for dialogue and feedback between the administration and city council, and then more community input. And so those things have all been worked into the process. And so now we're very shortly going to kick off plans for our new budget year. And again, those will be the themes: more time, more dialogue and feedback, and more community input. Another big focus of this time in ensuring a thriving City Hall has been ensuring our financial health as an organization. There's currently a proposal by some of our city council partners to drop the tax rate from 120 to 116. And I first want to say I totally get it, right? I mean, I think that I heard often on the campaign trail that people express frustration about paying higher taxes in the city as compared to some of our surrounding counties. And so I am absolutely aligned with the desire to bring down the tax burden on our residents. And I pledged at some point during my time in the seat to really take a hard look at our ability to do that. That said, I do not believe that this is the time for a tax rollback, and a couple reasons that I'll share here. One, that this coming year is going to be a freeze on tax assessments. We've talked about that a lot. We want to take every opportunity to alert Richmonders that for fiscal year 2027, we are freezing their tax assessments so that we can get the tax assessment schedule aligned with our fiscal year. And so as a result, we are not going to see an increase in revenues as we build out this new budget for fiscal year 27 that comes from the annual increase in tax assessments. And so if we reduce the tax rate from $1.20 to $1.16, but tax assessments are frozen as they will be, we're actually going to see an almost $17 million decrease in revenues. And so I think it's really important for Richmonders to understand that. It's important to know that, there may be a time down the road, right? The following year, we'll probably see the compounding effect of 2 years of tax assessment. And so maybe there's an opportunity to look at it then. But that, combined with the federal uncertainty that we're experiencing, still not sure what the impacts of a federal budget that is really pulling back on local support. I think there's a lot of uncertainty there that we want to be in a good position to respond to. And then I'll also say that the tax rate is not necessarily the best solution for the problem that we're trying to solve, right? So much of what I hear out in the community is we pay too high taxes. And that comes from a place of just a challenged economy. Everything is costing more money. And so people are looking for relief. They're looking for opportunities for relief. And I think that, the tax rate really impacts homeowners, right? So if you own a home, the median home price is around $400,000. And currently you're paying $1.20 on that. And if we drop that to $1.16, in a given year, you as the homeowner save $160 towards your tax payment. Now, if you're really wealthy and own $1 million house, you save $400 on that tax rollback. And you take the collective impact, for an individual, that may not be the kind of relief that people are hoping for or expecting, but the collective impact, as I said, is almost $17 million. And so I feel like this is the wrong solution right now for the issue of housing affordability that we're trying to solve for so many of our residents. Remember, 57% of Richmonders are renters, and so they wouldn't actually benefit from a tax rollback on property tax. I think the other side of this argument is that that we're going through a process of diagnosis and assessment, and there are a lot of things that the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Donald, and his team are going to find, and as we want to invest in the improvement of services, we're going to need access to funding to do that. We think about the finance department. That might take investments in people. It might take investments in technology. And so again, this does not feel like the best time to actually pull back on the revenues that are available to us as we're trying to improve service delivery to our residents. And I should also know that focusing on the tax rate, we're taking our eyes off of the more pressing issue that is impacting, which is the fact that the tax assessments are going up so much every single year, right? Year to year, people are experiencing, if they own a home, that their assessed value of their home is increasing by 10 or 12%. And that does impact the amount of taxes that they're paying, and people do feel that pinch. Now, remember, this is not something that the city is doing, right? We're not calculating that tax assessment. That is done by a neutral, fair market value analysis by our city assessor. Now, the city assessor is really, determining fair market value based on the market. And Richmond has been a top 5 real estate market in the country for most of the last year, top 10 for longer than that. And that's a result of the fact that Richmond is a place that people want to be. We are much more affordable compared to neighbors in DC or folks coming down from New York. They see Richmond as an incredible opportunity to buy a house. And while that's good, we want to invite new people into our city. We want to be growing as a city. The challenge is that it has really pushed up our existing home prices because of supply and demand. When we do not have enough housing stock to meet the demand of other people coming to this community and wanting to live here, that increases the assessments that everybody is experiencing. And so we really need to focus on housing production. And so that brings me to the second pillar that I want to focus on, which is thriving neighborhoods. And I just want to reaffirm that. Our commitment to thriving neighborhoods is meeting the housing needs of a growing city so that every Richmonder can live in an affordable, safe, and quality home. So we've talked a lot in community meetings about this housing affordability crisis. This is not just a Richmond issue. This is happening all over the country. I am regularly in dialogue with mayors from other parts of the country. And last year, Andy Ginther, who is the mayor of Columbus, Ohio, and the past president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, said housing is not just an issue, it is the issue of our time. And so this is something that cities across the country are facing, and it all comes down to housing stock, housing production. Is there enough housing stock to meet the demand of growing communities? Right now in the federal government, Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Tim Scott are advancing a bipartisan bill. It's called the Road Bill, and many of the mayors were able to be on a call with Senator Warren a couple weeks ago where she talked about the fact that it is housing supply that is driving up prices. And so this Road Act that's making its way through Congress right now is really a way to incentivize local governments to increase the production of housing. So there's lots of work that we can do internally to City Hall, making the permitting process go more quickly, being more efficient in the way that things pass through City Hall. But there's also other work that we can do, and part of that work is looking at our zoning code. So right now, and for most of the last year, we have been engaging community residents around the idea of a code refresh. Our housing code has not been revised since 1976. And right now, 57% of the land in the city of Richmond is zoned for a single-family home. And so that reality makes it difficult to put a duplex or a triplex or a multi-unit. And that limits the amount of housing that can actually be built, and therefore the amount of stock that can factor into that supply-demand equation. And so, our approach to this is we've got to use every tool that we can to increase housing production in our community. So Code Refresh is one of those tools, and right now, again, we are in the phase of really soliciting impact from every corner of the city, soliciting input from every corner of the city so that residents can have their voices be heard and talk about what they want to see in their neighborhoods. And I don't want residents to lose sight of what is really driving this is that we are trying to deal with the reality that we are a growing city, that we are a popular place to be, that people want to be here. And if we're going to temper the real estate market, if we're going to cool the real estate market, we do need to produce more housing. So Code Refresh is a part of that. Our internal work on the zoning process is part of that. Our investments in affordable housing specifically are another part of that. And so recently we announced that I, along with Councilwoman Robertson, are putting together a budget amendment to put $2 million from the Tax Delinquent Fund into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And so we expect to have that budget amendment introduced by September 22nd. And more to come on that. That would be $2 million additional dollars in addition to the $13 million that has already gone into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund this fiscal year. And we are continuing to work on other ways to create a sustained pathway for money into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund while using other tools as well. All right, I think that's a good place to pause and see what questions you all have. Oh, well, actually, I'm going to let Mira run point on the question facilitation.
Okay, we'll go down the line. Go ahead.
Yes, with the code refresh, is there a danger that the city is communicating that there's really a predetermined outcome with this? causing anxiety in some neighborhoods where people specifically purchased homes because they like single-family homes and they don't want a 4, 5, 6-story multifamily, thing plopped in the middle of the neighborhood in the name of affordable housing?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. I think is there a danger that the city has?
Is the city listening?
Yeah, is the city listening? There are residents that may have bought a single-family home because they like single-family homes. And so, yeah, let me reiterate that what we are doing right now in this community engagement process that has gone on for the last, better part of a year and will continue over the next few months is soliciting that community feedback. There is not a fixed plan about what zoning is going to look like. As we go and have all of these community meetings, as we have different voices weigh in on the proposed zoning plan, we will make adjustments. And so absolutely, the outcome is not fixed. We really are sincere in our effort to hear from people. And I think it's important. I went to a community meeting recently, and the vast majority of folks in that audience were older homeowners in those communities, and so I think it's also important for us to hear from a variety of voices, from younger renters, from younger homeowners, from folks who can't afford to own a home, right? And so we are looking to increase the amount of community input and to make sure that all of those voices across the city are heard. But absolutely, the proposed zoning changes are not fixed at all. Like we will use this feedback to really be responsive to the things that we're hearing from community members.
So on the tax rate discussion, it seems like in past years, previous administrations have said something similar to what you just said, that they kind of support relief in theory, but now's not the right time. So I guess, what conditions would you need to see to think a tax rate cut or rollback would be doable? Like, what is the point where you think, okay, the city has enough money, we can think about giving some money back to taxes?
Yeah, the question is, what are the criteria where we would actually feel good about rolling back the taxes? I think, one, if this continues to be a real pain point for our residents, right? My hope is that we could engage our community in an honest discussion about what rolling back the taxes actually means, right? Again, like $1 million house, that's $400 a year. Does that really make a difference to you? For some people it does, for many people it won't, and the collective impact of that is really significant on our city budget. And this is a city where we do have growing investment needs in schools, in infrastructure. And so, I think if this continues to be something that our residents are really pointing to and we're seeing is something that makes us less competitive with our surrounding communities, then we have to absolutely look at it, right? I think that's one of the core drivers of this conversation is that, why can our surrounding counties able to drop their tax rates and Richmond can't? And so part of the criteria, though, would be that we're able to replace that revenue with something else. And so I think as we see more people continue to move here, as we see more parts of our city develop, as we see new new revenue streams from that development, I think then would be an appropriate time for us to pull back on the tax rate.
Does that seem like we'll get there in your first 4 years, or is this longer term?
Yeah, jury's still out. I'm more than happy to look at it every year because I know that this is something that our residents care about. And so ultimately it will be where are the political pressures here, and are residents voicing that concern to their city council members, and do we in city council get on the same page of that? It's possible, right? I think it's possible that we could drop the tax rate, not this year, again, because of the tax assessment freeze, but a few years down the road when we've seen revenues grow in other places. And my hope is that the community would say, okay, we would rather see, $20 million less a year going into services than we would investing in schools or investing that needs to be a conversation we're having at the community in public, right?
And with securing affordable housing and all that, there's this ever-evolving situation with RHA. Regarding the vote tomorrow, is that still scheduled to happen, and what exactly is City Council voting on?
Yeah, the question is RHA's vote still scheduled to happen, and what exactly are they voting on? So as far as I know, that the RHA board is meeting tomorrow. and I haven't seen the agenda. I don't know if they've decided to pull their decision to vote on the existence of the, what do they call it, the RDC, the residential, Richmond Development Corporation. So, they're trying to make a determination about whether their board will vote the existence of the Richmond Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit entity that would aid in the redevelopment process. Now, as we read our city ordinances, not only would the RHA board need to vote on that, but that would ultimately need to come before city council for additional approval. And so this is some of the conversation we've been engaged with RHA. Not sure that we're totally on the same page yet, but I think we will get there. I just came from a ribbon cutting event at Creighton Court where the new residents of the first phase of the Creighton redevelopment were handed keys, and it was a really celebratory time. I think it's an example of really thoughtful build-first approach to public housing redevelopment. But there are also things that we should learn from Creighton redevelopment, right? There were many residents that along the way weren't educated enough or didn't know enough what the impacts would be on their lives, and that's something that I, as the mayor of the city, am really invested in for our public housing residents, right? I really believe that any redevelopment work that we do going forward has to be resident focused, that there has to be an investment in making sure residents know what to expect, that they know what it means to get a housing voucher, and that the house that they move to is no longer going to be owned by the government, but it would likely be privately owned if it's not a project-based voucher. So there's just a lot of nuance and complexity to public housing redevelopment, and I think our council and our city deserve to have that clarity as we go about redeveloping Gilpin Court.
As you know, election season is around the corner. Have you had conversations with new leadership? How prepared are they for the influx of voters this season, and when can we expect that you will be voting?
Well, I think early voting starts next week, right? So it's one of the really nice things about working in City Hall is we can do it right here. So I'll be voting as soon as the polls open up. I obviously have, along the way had conversations with many of the candidates. It's obviously a closely watched election. The polls seem like they're super tight, but huge consequences for us as a city. I mean, I think that we really do, especially given the federal government situation, we need partners at the state who really understand local issues and are willing to put some support behind that. So, watching carefully, and we'll be voting shortly.
So you're confident that the election office, it'll be a smooth season?
I actually don't know all that much about our election operation, so I think probably there's more, and this is not something, it's run by a board, right? Like, I don't think the city has direct oversight of the election office, which is why it hasn't necessarily been at the top of my list. Yeah.
Yes, so for me, touching back on, the whole Gilpin Court of it all, I know we got back from that Creighton Court ribbon cutting that we were just at. A lot of residents, got a tour of, that new renovated apartment, similar to like one committee that we spoke with. She still lives in Gilpin Court. What would you say to residents who are concerned that they might not get that, Creighton Court treatment? Is that still a plan to turn Gilpin Court into Creighton Court? Something like that?
Yeah, I think what Richmond Redevelopment Housing Authority has been very clear about is that they believe in a build-first approach to this, which means that they have a phased approach to development, that they will build new housing before any housing is torn down, and that the plan would be for as many residents as are able to be able to take a voucher and to move to that new housing. Now, that's where the details are really important, and where I'm really trying to be clear with RHA about my hopes and expectations about the way that they're supporting residents. Residents need to understand that if they're not currently lease compliant, that has implications for their ability to get a voucher. And so we collectively, the city, RHA, social services, et cetera, need to be providing the supports for families so that they can get lease compliant and they can successfully make that transition to new housing. And so that's the work that I'm really pushing all of us to lean into together and do on behalf of our families. And you know, HUD even, when they are facilitating redevelopment processes, there's the building plan, but there's also the people plan. And so, in my prior role as public health director for the city, we were very involved in supporting public housing's people plan, and we should learn from that. I think there are things that we did really well. I think there are things that we collectively needed to do better, and that's what I'm looking for here. So what I would say to residents is that public housing redevelopment absolutely has to happen, right? The federal government has changed its funding strategy. It's no longer going to put money into the old bricks and mortar of the existing courts as they are. And so RHA is doing the right thing to pursue public-private partnerships, to pursue different pathways of funding, to create new, modern, safe, affordable housing for its residents. There are a lot of details that families need to know about their eligibility and their ultimate ability to be one of those families who moves into a new home. And so I really want families to be engaged, to be in conversation with the Housing Authority, and to start doing the work now to make sure that their financial house is in order to be able to make that transition effectively.
Avula, in regards to the Creighton Court and RHA and the whole of it all in their statement, Mr. Nesbitt actually just said in the item that we have when he said they are not having a vote to transfer the Creighton Court
Got it.
to RDC, and said that there's going to be more discussion involved. And I also wanted to get your thoughts on Kenny Gibson, who's withdrawn her ordinance as well too, that she had placed on July 28th about the city having more oversight about that. And from the statement that she gave, she basically said that she feels like the discussion she's had with you as well as RHA, they feel like they want to work more in unison. Mr. Nesbitt agrees on the same thing. He's happy that they can, come to a compromise and have a more of a path forward. Just wanted to get your reactions on those things and also.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jamal. It's really reassuring to hear that they're not going to be voting on that tonight. I think there's still a lot of details that ultimately City Council would need to be comfortable with, and so I'm glad that they're taking a pause and working some of that out. I would absolutely agree with Mr. Nesbitt that this has been a really open conversation. They've been very willing to come and sit down with us and talk through things. I think that there just are a lot of details that haven't been worked out, which is why I issued the statement I did last week, because I just wanted to be very clear on the record about what I would need to see happen to be supportive of the plan. Stephen and I continue to have conversations. We want to see more City Council and RHA board connectivity. I think that would be a really good outcome from all of this. But I think if nothing else, the understanding that this does have to go through City Council approval, and that is going to just require us being at the table together more, is a really good outcome, and we're seeing that.
And then just last question, how can you make sure that it doesn't take a decade to have, development happen like you did with the court for Gilbert?
Yeah. It's a tough question because a lot of it comes down to money, right? And so, we have the opportunity to run multiple development processes at the same time, right? They can simultaneously be stewarding land in Gilpin and as they can in Mosby using different developer arrangements, but access to all of the different kinds of funding, whether that's local city funding or funding coming through Virginia Housing, through banks, and through the federal government. I mean, piecing all of that funding together is the challenge of this work. And so in a time where construction costs have been skyrocketing and federal money is being pulled back, we've got to look at other ways. And that's why the Housing Authority really has leaned into public-private partnerships, right? We need to look at redevelopment as an opportunity for mixed income development where a developer might be doing market rate housing that can subsidize deeply affordable housing. So there's clearly a sense of urgency. The question is, can the money and the logistics of this come together? I think my other answer to your question is that when I think about my time in this role and my priorities in this role, public housing redevelopment I think is one of the most important things we can do to assure safe and affordable housing for our most vulnerable citizens, and so it's something that I'm thinking about every day.
Everybody good? Okay.
I'll take one more.
Yeah, sure, go.
Sure.
But back to taxes, I mean, I hear what you're saying about is $160 really make or break money for people, but I guess to turn that around is $16 million make or break for City Hall when you have $1 billion operating budget. Like,
Yeah.
I guess the question, like, what, is that really not doable, or is there fiscal discipline, through fiscal discipline, a way to absorb a $16 million?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of maybe how I would have answered your initial question of like what are the criteria that and I think that fiscal discipline and us really looking at where can we build efficiencies is going to take us a little bit of time, right? Like Odie's been in the role for 2 months, our financial leaders have been in the role for about a month, and so I do think we need a good year of assessment, of precision, of really figuring out where can we tighten up the operation, and it is absolutely my intent to do that, and that may be one of the places that we can find a replacement for the revenue. But to the question of like, does $17 million matter for our budget? Like I'd ask the schools, right? Like we were not able to fully fund the schools' request this year. We did a significant amount, but the schools could absolutely use $17 million more to address some of their aging infrastructure. So no matter what, we are going to come to a question at some point of like, does whatever money we would save from a tax cut, is that a better and higher use than something else we might put it into? And that's a question that has to be played out in the public, right? I mean, that's where our democracy leans in and says either yes it is or no it isn't, and the city council will be the conduits of that decision. All right.
Okay.
Great to see y'all.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
all.
much.
Thanks for coming out in the rain. Really appreciate it.